decay held the secret to life. My name is Jack Haru-Skirpst, and with Thrive, I invite you to step into an interactive multimedia installation that explores life, growth, and death from a queer perspective, examining the impact that audio can have on visual art to create an immersive. Growing up in rural Pennsylvania, surrounded by deep woods and farmland, has led me to develop a fascination with nature. Nature inherently involves pain and death, subjects that are traditionally thought of as disturbing, upsetting, or unmentionable. When examining nature as a subject, it's often idealized, and these uncomfortable but realistic concepts of death are usually intentionally ignored and forgotten. Additionally, growing up queer in rural Pennsylvania has given me a unique perspective on life and death. Queerness within much of society has historically been erased, censored, and thought of as repulsive, similarly to much of society's perspective on death. As an artist, I'm exploring the connection between queerness and death. I depict death to elevate it, and in doing so, aim to give the queer experience the spotlight it deserves. Thrive features 3 movements that seamlessly transition the audience through an interactive audio-visual experience. And the 3 movements are decay, reflect, and thrive. I've created several mixed media pieces of art, including paintings, sculptures, audio, and video projections. The first movement, decay, begins the installation with depictions of death, decomposition, and rot within nature, representing the pain that is pervasive in life and intentionally evoking feelings of discomfort and disgust. Each viewer takes an object from inside the first sculpture with them as they move through the art. The videos that are projected on top of the paintings I've created were made by layering and manipulating time-lapse footage of animals and plants decomposing, and the soundscapes were created by reshaping and transforming audio of weather, different ambience, and animals in distress, creating an unsettling and disturbing atmosphere to accompany the death that's depicted. The next movement, reflect, allows for the audience to consider the painful or traumatic experiences they've had in their own lives and contemplate the difficult emotions that these experiences may evoke. The viewer sees themselves, the people around them, and the object they've decided to take with them. Mirrors allow for direct self-reflection, and they act as a poignant reminder that the audience is in a space that's been deliberately cultivated for them to experience. The final movement, thrive, exists in contrast to and as a result of decay, portraying flourishing growth within nature that occurs because of decomposition. It represents the development and emotional progress that occurs after we experience painful things in our life. The viewer sees the initial object, the viewer places the initial object they took to surround the final sculpture, transferring and connecting what came from death and decay to comfort and safety. Over the course of the show, the final sculpture becomes surrounded with life because of the audience's actions. The sound for this movement features gentle rainfall and crickets chirping, and it creates a contemplative and content atmosphere. I've been immersed in the worlds of both audio and art for my entire life. My work here explores how these two mediums can interact and the impact that audio can make on visual works. Creating an immersive, multi-sensory environment in this way fosters a more meaningful and compelling experience. Intentionality between sound and art has existed forever. A recent article from the Journal of the Acoustical Society of America discusses the investigation into the acoustics of caves that are home to prehistoric art. They discovered that several cave paintings found in Spain and France were actually created in the most resonant and reverberant areas of the caves, suggesting that humans have always been aware of the connection between visual art and sound. The combination of multiple sensory inputs within one artistic presentation creates an experience for the viewer that is dynamic, fluctuating, and malleable. We perceive the world around us by our bodies moving through it, and this perception can be enhanced through the use of multiple senses. The process of developing and constructing a physical space for an audience to experience is a concept I'm exploring heavily in my work. As someone who's constantly aware of the sights, sounds, smells, and atmosphere around me, I feel compelled to intentionally create work with those elements in mind. I'm concentrating on transporting the viewer to a place where they're more open to considering the concepts I'm discussing and reflecting on the emotions that evokes. I want to give some more context into my work conceptually and also ground my piece in the artwork I've taken inspiration from. Queerness and death are so intensely intertwined through history and culture, and I believe there's a power and value to depicting that concept through art. Not only is that topic personal to me, but it resonates with much of the queer community, and there's been a plethora of art created by queer artists presenting the relationship between queerness and death. This is Strange Fruit by Zoe Leonard, and it was created in response to the AIDS crisis, representing the suffering and loss that occurred as a result of government carelessness. The installation consists of eaten and discarded fruit peels that have been stitched back together by the artist with brightly colored threads and wires. The skins have been left to rot, and that decomposition is part of the work. The artist's attempts at mending the skins emphasize the inevitable and unstoppable decay. And I really resonated with this idea of highlighting the decomposition process, and I aim to do the same in my work, prevent death from being forgotten and discarded. These are several portraits by photographer Peter Hujar, all featuring prominent queer artists and performers, Candy Darling, David Wojnarowicz, and Divine, all of whom have since passed away. The first image, Candy Darling on her deathbed, shows Candy Darling, a transgender actress from the 1970s, meticulously photographed in her hospital bed as she was dying of lymphoma. Her identity was rejected, and she pushed the boundaries of what was deemed acceptable within society's perception of gender expression. There's drama embedded into the photograph, really with all of these examples, and the intentionality behind the composition invites an element of voyeurism and curiosity. And I really drew inspiration from this element of drama. Thrive's representations of death and decay are meant to be somewhat voyeuristic, something that you can't look away from due to morbid curiosity or the societal taboo surrounding death. This is John Jarboe's The Rose Garden, which is an immersive, interactive art exhibition exploring trans identity and the coined term gender cannibalism. Jarboe, the artist, explains that after coming out as transgender to her family, it was revealed to her that she had a twin sister in the womb, which she ate, comically explaining this realized identity. The work serves as a shrine to Jarboe's eaten twin, Rose, and provides a visceral and vulnerable and empowering depiction of what it's like to navigate gender. I've taken not only conceptual inspiration from the Rose Garden, but I've also drawn from its use of technology to cultivate an experience. The visual elements, such as the sculptures, video projections, and lighting, create an atmosphere on their own, but the addition of sound places the viewer in a different world with environmental soundscapes and music. Immersion is achieved specifically through the combination of audio and visuals, and the new meaning and emotion that's brought to the work through this combination is so unique and memorable. The process for completing Thrive has given me new insight into where I want to go next as an artist. I love working with my hands, but I obviously also love working with my ears, and being able to find a place where these passions can coincide and combine to create something new has been so fulfilling and rewarding. I took videos of almost everything I did while completing this project, and to me, they serve as a reminder of how much time and energy goes into creating something like this. I think we all, as creators, often look back on what we've created and downplay the effort it took to get there. So I documented everything, and I showcased these videos in the showing of the installation. All the materials I work with are either secondhand, recycled, or literal trash that I've accumulated. And my artistic aesthetic is very grounded in that use of found materials. Creating art with things that might otherwise be discarded is deeply connected to the concepts I'm exploring. Thrive's first exhibition was held on May 2nd, 2025 in a small row home in West Philadelphia. Placing the work in a home reinforced the intimacy and community fostered within my piece. Thrive gives validation and visibility to queer experiences through depictions of natural life and death, embracing the complexities and discomforts of these subjects. Elevating and comprehending the things that cause discomfort leads to profound growth, resilience, and a deeper appreciation for life. I'd like to thank Dr. Michelle Temple for her unending support, Evelyn Schuker for graciously opening her home for the show, and to everyone who was able to experience my work in person. You just had to be there. Thank you.
I'm wondering if you could speak a little bit more to your decision of the venue for your piece, and if you had intentionality behind that.
Absolutely. I think placing this work in the white box of a gallery wouldn't have done it enough justice. I think it is meant to be experienced with other people around you. You're meant to interact with not only the piece, but with the individuals who are also experiencing the piece with you. I think the reflection element, you see not only yourself, but the individuals around you. I think there's an element of community that I'm fostering within the work that is so connected to the place where it is presented.
When you labeled like the stages of the show as like acts, were you intending that to be like as more of like a story form, like this the Thrive act at the end is like the finale and growth comes out of decay, but it never goes back to decay? Or did you intend for it to be more of like a cycle that can runs through over and over again?
I think it's definitely a cycle that can be experienced over and over again. I got that note at the show that people had gone back and noticed things that they hadn't noticed before, but it definitely draws on that idea of a linear experience that you sort of read left to right.
So on that, kind of pulling that a little bit, something I've noticed in this and a lot of your other work is a really like large volume of material, even like necessarily in a small space. And I'm wondering if you could speak a little bit about like kind of your intentionality behind that and what you hope how that affects how the viewer would engage with it.
I think maximalism is something I am very in tune with in my artistic aesthetic. I think it also draws on the use of multiple mediums and intentionally having the viewer use more than one sense. The hearing, the seeing, the touching. I think there's a maximalist quality to combining so many different types of interaction within the work that I think combines.
Perhaps like no one way to go through the work. Yeah.
One of the things that struck me at the opening was how we were able to maintain interest in the audio over such a long period of time. I think I was there for 2 hours, and we commented on how interesting everything remained, even that far into experiencing something which is, longer than oftentimes people would be, in a gallery setting, experiencing something like this. So when you're working with those kind of timescales with regard to audio, what was your approach to working with such, again, kind of speaking to what Dr. Wells was talking about with maximalism, there's a maximalism in the audio as well, and that's a long time to listen to mixes and keep your ears fresh. And I was just curious about the workflow part of dealing with such maximalist audio source. As
to those who have been at the showing, the audio for each movement flips from one side to the other, so it'll play about a minute of decay audio, and then it'll play about a minute of Thrive audio, and it'll switch back and forth. I think that definitely helped. My initial idea for the project was to have them play simultaneously, but I thought that they needed to speak on their own, and I thought that also helped with the cyclical aspect of being able to experience it for longer and re-experience it. There isn't actually that much audio for each movement. I think I just was very deliberate and intentional with where I placed the sound effects and what I was highlighting within each minute chunk of audio, so that you couldn't tell when it repeated, and there wasn't ever a moment where it got repetitive or boring.
You did a great job with that. It's really, one would assume that there's loops happening at some point in an audio that's going on for that amount of time, but it wasn't at all apparent. It was like I said, everyone was speaking how it maintained interest for such long periods of time. So congratulations with that part of it, with everything, but with that part of the project as well.
Thank you. Okay, thank you so much.